Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. And in this video, I want to look at the week starting on Monday, November the 6th, 2023, which runs through until Sunday, November the 12th, 2023. So what I'm going to do in this video, and it's not going to be a very long video, I don't think, is I want to just start off by looking at the main astrological events of the week as I see it. I'm sure I've missed a few things out, but yeah, I just want to give you an idea about what things I'm looking at. Then I want to relate this to a couple of famous people. I'm not saying anything is going to happen to these famous people. I just want to point out that some of the stuff going on astrologically could affect them. I've gone for, Bill Gates, Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. So those are four famous people that I'm going to talk about in this video. When I've done that, I'm going to look at the I Ching, and I'm going to look at my I Ching forecast for this week. And so I'm going to look at the forecast from a general perspective. Then I'm going to look at money, then career, and finally relationships. And that's a video, and I don't expect it to be very long. So let's start off by looking at what's going on this week. Top right, that's Bill Gates. I think something might be going on in his horoscope, but just because something's going on in the horoscope doesn't actually mean that anything's going on in real life. And even if it were to be going on, would he tell us? I don't know. So this is the positions of the planets here at the beginning of the week. So like that's midnight, Monday, November the 6th, 2023. And I've set it for Westminster, England, UK. So what are the main themes? Okay, Monday, beginning of the week, November the 6th, we see that Venus is at 27 Virgo. Venus, starting to leave the sign of Virgo, moving through the last few degrees of the sign. And it is making a trine aspect to Pluto. Quite a fortunate aspect in Earth signs. So if you take it from a perspective of relationships, Venus is the planet of relationships, trine Pluto. That might mean that certain relationships can change in a fairly dramatic way, but not in such a way that we're going to see explosions and stuff like that. I mean, it is a trine. So maybe we should be looking at new ways of relating to the people closest to us. It's all very, it's all very solid. It's, Venus is in Virgo. That's an earth sign. Pluto, of course, is in Capricorn, another earth sign. So, it might relate to, perhaps the physical side of a relationship, how things, the concept of touch and the way things are organized, that kind of thing. Venus can also be the planet of money, particularly Venus in Virgo. So some of us might have the opportunity to make changes to financial arrangements. We might suddenly announce it. Don't give any warning. Just tell the world it has been done like this, and now it's going to be done like that, or something like that. And if you have the element of surprise, it may be that you can force these changes through. Venus, aside from money, can relate to sort of beauty, appearances, that kind of thing. Some of us, not me, but might be tempted to make a change to our appearance, maybe change the way we dress, the way we look, our hair, something like that. That might be all part of it. Could be quite fortunate. It is Venus trine Pluto, but of course don't do anything irreversible. Yeah, that's something to look out for. But Venus is a fast-moving planet, and trines. It's so easy for trines to just, they can appear, and if no one does anything about them, they disappear. Very often trines can be a real disappointment in terms of transits and aspects. That's why I prefer to focus on conjunctions, squares, oppositions, even semi-squares, because they're more dynamic. That trine between Venus and Pluto, yeah, it's not dynamic. It can be transformative, but not necessarily. So moving on a couple of days to Wednesday the 8th, and we get a sign change. Venus moves out of Virgo. I think this is good news. Venus doesn't really work very well in Virgo. Virgo is just too materialistic, too focused on details. Venus is supposed to be about relationships. It's quite an emotional planet. And in Virgo, it doesn't really work too well because we're just so focused on details, and we're thinking about stuff like money and mistakes and things like that. So it's very difficult to get really close to people with Venus in Virgo. So Venus moving out of Virgo is good news. Not least because Venus is it's fallen in Virgo. It just doesn't. It's because Venus is exalted in Pisces. It's fallen in Virgo. So moving out of Virgo is good news. And then it moves into Libra. So Venus is fallen in Virgo, but it's in its own sign in Libra. So there's a dramatic improvement in the condition of Venus on Wednesday. So suddenly, relationships can start to function in a better way. People are going to be less focused on details. I think people are going to be more polite. Venus in Libra is, all things being equal, quite a polite placement for Venus. Doesn't usually like to rock the boat. It's not going to sort of get obsessed about details and, just to the extent where relationships get destroyed and people get angry and that kind of thing. Further, Libra is an air sign, and for a long time we haven't had any planets in air signs. Now we've got Venus moving into Libra, and it's going to stay in Libra for a bit of time. So there's more levity, there's more scope for conversation, there's more scope for sort of talking about ideas, and whether those ideas be realistic or not is beside the point. So there's more air in the room, and I think that's certainly a good thing. Then moving on to Friday, Friday the 10th, we see another sign change. Probably not such a fortunate sign change. We see Mercury. Mercury on Monday was at 23-29 Scorpio. Then on Friday, it moves into Sagittarius. Mercury doesn't work well in Sagittarius because Mercury rules Gemini, and Sagittarius is the opposite sign to Gemini. So, Mercury is about... it's like Virgo, it is a bit about the details, but it's about the facts and understanding what's going on, and Mercury tries to be logical. And so in Sagittarius is about sort of big ideas, and so Mercury can't really express itself properly in Sagittarius, and Mercury can make mistakes in Sagittarius. The mind is not as good as it should be with Mercury in Sagittarius. Can jump to conclusions, can ignore the facts, can just not not weigh things up, just, right in there. It's like this. So that's one of the problems of Mercury moving into Sagittarius. But right now, the problem is compounded by the fact that Saturn is in at 0 Pisces. So the moment Mercury moves into Sagittarius, it makes an immediate square with Saturn. And so Mercury square Saturn is, it's about reality. Mercury is trying to escape from reality in Sagittarius, perhaps, but then it has to square Saturn. So we have to deal with reality, and we might sort of hit a brick wall. Mercury in Sagittarius also it can be a bit tactless. So Wednesday we might say something, just something just comes out of our mouth. We just can't help it. And then immediately we get pushback. Immediately we get criticism. At its worst, Mercury square Saturn can be a bit depressive. We might have a tinge of negativity on Wednesday. Sagittarius is a sign that is connected with depression. That might sound strange, but Sagittarius wants action. It wants variety, and if it doesn't get it, it can get depressed. Like Winston Churchill, he was a Sagittarius. He talked about his depression, the black dog of his depression, and then so Mercury in Sagittarius square Saturn in Pisces. Yeah, it's having to face reality. At the same time, because Saturn is in water sign, there can be just getting caught on some sort of emotional block, and that just doesn't help. But on the plus side, Mercury is moving quite quickly, so it will move past that square of Saturn. So if you suddenly on Wednesday start feeling very negative, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's something which I think should pass. Then on Saturday, November the 11th, is probably the most important aspect of the week, and it is Mars opposition Uranus. There is Mars 17 Scorpio on Monday, but by Friday, it's moved to the opposition of Uranus. Mars opposition Uranus can be difficult. It can be associated with danger, doing things that are dangerous, perhaps doing stuff with machines that is dangerous. Machine that includes cars. So at the end of a week, Saturday of a weekend, particularly on the 11th, just be really careful. You just don't want to do anything stupid with machinery. You don't want to drive too fast. You don't want to be driven too fast. Mars Uranus can be really angry. There can be blasts of anger. That is quite possible. So over the weekend, next weekend starting Saturday the 11th, just be careful. You must resist the temptation to get angry, because when you're angry, you can't think straight. When you're angry, you make mistakes, and when you start making mistakes, you actually can put yourself in danger. That's like when you're driving. If you're angry, road rage, driving too fast, putting your frustrations into the road, that's not a good thing. So yes, I think that Mars Uranus could be difficult, and of course, in war zones, Mars Uranus is really difficult. So if you're in the middle of a war, and there are some wars going on, then with that Mars opposition Uranus, you do have to be extra careful. So what I wanted to do now is just look at a couple of people who may be impacted by this Mars Uranus opposition. So this opposition takes place, you can see at around 21, let me just tell you exactly where the opposition takes place. This opposition takes place at, I think, around 21.9 Taurus. So you've got Uranus at 21.9 Taurus, Mars at 21.9 Scorpio. So who is impacted by this? One person who could be impacted by this is Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, he's the Senate Minority Leader. We know that Mitch McConnell has recently had health issues. He's sort of been talking and then he's just apparently been lost for words. And so people have, been concerned about his cognitive health. And, I said sort of quite recently that things might be difficult for him because he's got Saturn on his sun. You see, there's Mitch McConnell's sun at noon. I don't have a time of birth for Mitch McConnell, just so I'm going for noon, February the 20th, 1942 in Sheffield, Alabama, where I think he was born. You can see Mitch McConnell has sun at 126 Pisces, so he's already got Saturn conjunct his sun. It's going to stay there for some time because Saturn is stationary direct, so that puts a pressure on him. He's not going to be as effective as he used to be. Things are going to creak with Saturn. Saturn, in certain instances, can be, the impact of old age. That's one aspect of Saturn, and so maybe with Saturn hitting his sun at the moment, old age is beginning to weigh on him. But then we look at his chart and we see that he's actually got a Mars-Saturn conjunction in his chart. Quite a close Mars-Saturn conjunction. Mars-Saturn conjunctions can be about frustration, can be about things are really slow, difficult to get things done, getting angry, getting annoyed, and so on. So with a Mars-Uranus opposition at 21 Taurus Scorpio, we can see that hits his Mars directly and it hits his Saturn directly. So this Mars-Uranus opposition could be really difficult for Mitch McConnell. Perhaps we're going to have further health problems quite soon. So we have to watch Mitch McConnell, around next weekend, see if there's any news about him. No, nothing is set in stone. I think Mitch McConnell, if I was advising Mitch McConnell, which of course I'm not, he's got to take it really slowly. He's got to just have a break for the next couple of weeks. That Mars-Uranus opposition is dangerous. So he has to be careful. Mars-Uranus opposition on your Mars at a time when you've got Saturn on your Sun. He does have to be careful. Then we've got Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor. Here is his chart, and Olaf Scholz has got the moon. He's got moon at 21 Taurus. So we've got, I believe, a fairly accurate time of birth for him. So if he's got his moon at 21 Taurus, and he's got this Mars-Uranus opposition right on his moon. Moon is in the 8th house. Again, he's another person that has to be careful. He needs to check his security. He's going to be attracting negative attention. The moon can be the people. And I think for him, I think the people in Germany are perhaps not too happy about Olaf Scholz. He's going to get a lot of criticism. It's going to be a load of pressure, load of tension. He's going to be wondering, why does he bother, getting involved in politics? Is it really worth it? So I think he could be under a lot of pressure. And I think because Moon in 8th, Mars-Uranus opposition, that might be a personal safety issue there for him. So he needs to make sure that his security is all in order, that kind of thing. And notice that in his chart, the moon is ruler of his midheaven. Regardless of whether you use Placidus house cusps or whole sign house cusps, it's still connected with his midheaven, the Cancer 10th house. So his whole role as being chancellor is just going to be difficult. As I said, a lot of criticism. It's the people are not going to like him. And Mars Uranus can be about an event or an attempt or something like that. So yeah, he probably over the weekend he should probably avoid public appearances. Just stay at home, not interact with the great unwashed public. Just do his own thing and keep a low profile. Then we've got Bill Gates. Obviously not a politician, and obviously he can be more private from someone like Scholz or even Mitch McConnell. Now, Bill Gates has a conjunction between Venus and Saturn in Scorpio. I have looked at Bill Gates's chart before, and I've kind of associated that Venus-Saturn conjunction with relationships. I mean, he has had some issues with relationships. For a long time, Bill Gates was, I think, seen as being sort of very moral person, not one to sort of do anything strange, that kind of thing. But recently, there have been, he's sort of split. When he split with his wife, and other stories and rumors about him have been floating around, and I think that might be associated with his Venus-Saturn. The Venus-Saturn conjunction is something, an aspect of who he is that we don't normally see until relatively recently. Anyway, Mars is conjunct his Venus-Saturn conjunction, and so Uranus is opposition. So he's got Uranus opposition his Venus-Saturn, and he's got Mars right on it. So it may relate more to his personal life, relationships. Bill Gates has to be very careful about how he deals with the people closest to him. So there's scope for perhaps a big argument, a row, events which cause trouble. So he has to be really careful when dealing with other people, particularly the people he cares about. Just tread really, really carefully. And I suppose Venus is connected with money. I mean, obviously he's a very rich man, but something to do with his finances may need to be sorted out because of events, perhaps. Mars-Uranus opposition on his Venus-Saturn conjunction. Finally, I want to talk about Joe Biden very quickly. Joe Biden. Joe Biden, look, he's got his Mercury at 21 Scorpio. So that means that around November the 11th, he's going to have Mars conjunct his Mercury. He's going to have Uranus opposition his Mercury. So I think there's scope for him getting really confused. If he says anything in terms of his sort of speeches and whatever, he may use very unfortunate language. And Mars-Uranus, he's just going to be distracted, and he's going to find it difficult to communicate in a smooth way. And yeah, there might be news that really disturbs him. So yeah, let's see how that works out. I suppose we have to say that he's got Mercury in the 12th house. So this Mars-Uranus opposition is on his 6th, 12th house. So maybe he needs to be a bit careful about his health, particularly his cognitive health. certainly not a good time for Joe Biden to be making decisions. So that's something he needs to watch for. Okay, so that's, those are the main things going on astrologically as far as I'm concerned. I think the Mars-Uranus opposition on Saturday the 11th is the most important thing, and I think that has potential for sort of causing violence and chaos, particularly in places which are already violent and chaotic, whether it's Gaza or Ukraine or somewhere else. So yeah, watch out for that, and don't do anything dangerous on the weekend of the Saturday, the 11th, Sunday the 12th. Okay, so let's now move to the I Ching. So I asked the question, what is a weekend going to be like for the week starting on Monday, November the 6th, for people watching this video. And just a reminder that you don't have to watch this video. If you don't want to hear what I say about the I Ching, then it doesn't affect you. My interpretation of the I Ching, my forecast regarding the I Ching, only affects the people who hear my forecast, and even then, of course, it might not affect them. Let's get that straight. There's always a margin of error there. Okay, so I threw 3 coins in the air 6 times, and the hexagram I got was this. So, in a general sense, this hexagram 59, dispersion, is about things having to be cleaned out. Things have perhaps gone too far. People have got the wrong ideas. A lot of people have got sort of caught up in their own egos, and it all needs to be cleared out. It all needs to go. And so, dispersion is very much about rain and floods even. You can see this in the symbolism of the hexagram, because these bottom 3 lines of the hexagram represent the abyss, water. Top 3 lines represent the wind. So it's like wind over water, clearing everything away. And I suppose a wind over water, it brings up a lot of rain and whatever, and it can clear, it sort of clears things out. And people who have high opinions of themselves could likewise get cleared out. But it's probably fortunate, this hexagram, because once things are cleared out, it provides new opportunities. And indeed, if you're in a big storm, you might get thrown all over the place, and you might be thrown somewhere where you're suddenly in a good position. You started in a bad position, and there's a big flood, and everything gets churned all over the place, like being, I suppose, being in a clothes dryer, and then suddenly you're somewhere else, and you can potentially benefit from the situation. So that's a general reading for dispersion. As far as money is concerned, I think that there have recently been a lot of wrong ideas. People have perhaps been very stubborn about the right way to use money, the right way to spend money, the right way to invest money. People have been stubborn, and people haven't wanted to change, and maybe we ourselves have been stubborn. And then suddenly, with dispersion, the rains come. All the garbage, all the wrong ideas about money are starting to, are being thrown away, and we can actually see the situation for what it really is. yeah, we might be concerned when we see the situation for what it really is, but we can now start to actually do something about it. So dispersion, that's like all the nonsense moving away. So in general, with money, I think there are moments this week where we're going to be quite concerned. We're suddenly going to think we live in unstable times. Can we really afford what we're doing? Have we got enough money? There may be a real worry there, and things get more and more unstable. But that instability creates new opportunities, and if you're able to take the new opportunities in the longer term, I think you can really take action to really sort out your financial situation. As far as career is concerned, I think it's clear that there are some people, at work, if you are working in company of other people, who've got a lot of wrong ideas. You've got people who really believe in themselves, who are arrogant, who have become so arrogant that they have been sort of divorced from reality, and they're heading for a fall. And with dispersion, the situation is going to suddenly start moving forward quickly. People who have wrong ideas are going to suddenly see that they are wrong, and they're going to be faced with the consequences of being wrong. And as a result, they will be dispersed. Because, people with people who have separated themselves from the rest of society with their arrogance, they're not going to last. They're not going to stand this thing. The metaphorical flood will throw them to one side. So I think we can expect perhaps some big changes in the social environment if you're working. One group of people are perhaps being discredited, and another group of people, are starting to make sense, and maybe that's you. Maybe you can understand the situation better than other people, particularly as you're watching this video. You can understand that this is a process of wrong ideas being washed out, and the people who understand what needs to be done, who are prepared to make the big changes, they're the ones who can be successful. And finally, there's relationships. Dispersion, okay, it might 59. It might bring certain relationships to an end, because you kind of see people for what they are. You can see that some people are just not on your wavelength. Everything is chaotic, and the drama of dispersion, the drama of the flood, everything being revealed, makes you think, makes you see what people are really like. So it may be a time, once the storm is over, once everyone has changed, because once if there's a big storm, everyone gets thrown in different places, and once the storm is over, you might find that you thought you were close to one person, and then actually you might be close to someone else, and so relationships could be changing in many different ways. Also, you may start to realize what people are like by watching how they behave in a crisis, because when there is a crisis, people often react instinctively, and when they're reacting instinctively, you see what they're really like. So that's perhaps one of the advantages of a crisis, of things suddenly changing. And one should point out that the nuclear hexagram of dispersion You see there's a nuclear hexagram. If we knock off the top and the bottom lines, and then we take the first three as the top, bottom these three as the bottom, we actually have this as a nuclear hexagram. Where is it? Yeah, the nuclear hexagram of dispersion is 27, the corners of the mouth, and sort of underlying this chaos. When you've got this crisis, is the importance of seeing what nourishes people. When they're in that panic, when things have suddenly happened, they suddenly go to what's important, and you can see what they regard as important. You can see what nourishes them, and by watching their instinctive behavior really carefully, you can actually make a decision about whether or not to trust them. So I think that is an important point to make about dispersion. Because of that nuclear hexagram, in terms of relationships, yes, we can start to see how people react. Just look at that first reaction. When people get news, see what they do first. When you see what they do first, you can understand whether or not they can be trusted. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about this week. As I said, there are a few challenges. I think towards the end of the week, things are probably more difficult than the beginning. I'm just looking at the overall picture for this week. Astrology, I Ching, whatever. End of the week, I think it is going to be more difficult. There are going to be more issues to deal with. We've got Friday, we've got Mercury in Sagittarius square Saturn. We're going to have to face some reality. There might be a bit of negativity there. That's Friday. Then Saturday, Mars opposition Uranus. Be really careful on Saturday and Sunday. I really must emphasize that, because that Mars opposition Uranus could be quite dangerous. Okay, so have a safe week, and I will talk to you again very soon.